Thanks very much for the warm introduction and the handover. As you have kindly introduced, I am Görkem Çopuroğlu and I work in Digitopia as the Nordics engagement manager. As we have been discussing since yesterday, AI is a large and a growing field with several branches underneath. And as the potential and the importance of AI continue to grow, startups all around the world are coming up with truly innovative solutions which they want to scale up. And today, in the next hour, we will be talking about the global opportunities for AI startups. And for that purpose, I have three guests as it looks with me. We are also supposed to have a Michael in our team, but I think he is not with us. I would like to introduce our guests following your brief introduction so our audience have a better understanding on their profile. And then we deep dive into our exciting discussion. So I want to start with James, who is our first guest in the list. James is an innovation-driven, accomplished entrepreneur and a published author with more than 20 years of experience in helping companies to transform their business to deliver a better customer service. James is the co-founder and CEO of AI Collaborator, which is an AI network organization that specializes in making AI innovations accessible and transparent to many by connecting AI community with the top enterprises who want to transform their business with the right resources. And then we have Lisa. Lisa has a background working in high-tech companies and helping them establish themselves in greater Copenhagen area. Lisa is currently working as an AI investment manager in Copenhagen capacity and also a part of Nordic AI, right, Lisa?
That's
Nordic
correct.
AI is a non-profit organization that aims to bring all AI and machine learning ecosystems under one umbrella in Nordic region. And then we have Aytül. Aytül is an award-winning entrepreneur, including the Startup of the Year award. She is also a professor and an angel investor. Aytül is the co-founder and CEO of Vispera Information Technologies, which is a startup that aims to make image recognition a commodity service for retail sector. So, looks like we still miss Michael.
No, I'm here.
Are we good to start our... Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Can I not see you?
I don't know.
Hi, Michael. And our last guest, Michael, hi, who is an experienced data scientist and has a PhD from Technical University of Denmark. And Michael is also a co-founder of a Copenhagen-based startup called Brevetti AI, which specializes in building AI-powered solutions for companies in pharmaceutical industries. Right, Michael?
Yes, thank you.
Following this brief introduction, I would like to start with our first question. And James, I will be referring to you. Could you please tell us about the scope and the mission of AI Collaborator and how do we prepare and support startups in navigating through the challenges on their first day?
First of all, thank you for the introduction there, and thank you all for having me. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, great. So AI Collaborator, we are a global collaboration platform where we bring large enterprises together with startups, startup AI innovators, and other service providers from around the globe. In terms of the industries we support right now, we do work in pharmaceutical, consumer products, retail, and then a few other industries here and there, but those are sort of the major ones. In terms of how we support the startups, we get to know the startups fairly deeply throughout the process. We have a process of sort of onboarding, establishing an initial relationship with startups, and then really as opportunities present themselves from our client base, we work with the startup to help them. Well, we're actually doing two parts. First, we work with the enterprise to really help them define the requirements of any execution, including getting fairly specific, not only about sort of the technical requirements, but in a lot of cases, there are also sort of demographic requirements, for example, location, things like this, but also understanding sort of cultural requirements and things like that that might be important to the enterprise. And then we can match up startups from around the world and give those startups an opportunity to present to those companies. And so we typically will go through a process that's sort of a virtual pitch. We will spend a lot of time coaching the startups to get them prepared for the process and sort of explain to them the things that are important to the client. And then we typically will try to give them a couple weeks to get prepared for the presentation and things like that. And then we will coach them through the entire process. And we actually are on the call with the
I think we lost you there.
Sorry, James, we lost your audio.
Okay, am I back?
Yes.
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 Just so you can't get comfortable. And additionally, we, rather than just matching the startups and getting out of the way, we actually bring in project management resources and things like that too, that sort of guide the process with the relationship.
Thanks very much for that, James. Lisa, considering Nordic AI is a non-profit organization, as far as I know, primarily focusing on Nordic region, what could you tell us about your scope of support that you provide to startups that are reaching out to you?
Sure. So it's a little bit different than James' project in the sense that, as you said, it's nonprofit. Not only is it nonprofit, but it's volunteer run. Nobody has a full-time job at Nordic AI. I have been working in AI companies in the Nordics, and myself and many other people within the AI ecosystem noticed we had a little problem, which is that a huge amount of the AI companies were on stealth mode. That's a couple of reasons for that. One is that they were a little bit scared of getting their talent poached by some of the larger companies like Google and Amazon, et cetera, and they just wanted to develop under the radar. Two, some of them just didn't have any marketing resources. They were 3 PhDs working on a project. And with no transparency, you can't really know what's out there. You can't collaborate. You can't attract investors because the ecosystem looks smaller than it is. So it started out as just a tracking project where we tried to crowdsource a list of all the AI companies in the region just to serve as a basis of mapping the ecosystem. And we had a lot of help with that. And that in itself is a service because it helps us to show investors and corporates and other people that could be relevant, hey, actually we have some of the highest numbers of AI startups per capita. We're just very quiet about it because we're tiny little Nordics, not great at marketing ourselves. The second thing that we do is we just do community-based connections, kind of like events that you're doing here. And those are just serving to help the local ecosystem to hire, to meet each other, to retain and attract talent, and to meet partners and stakeholders.
One question. As far as I know, there is a national strategy in Denmark around AI. They are trying to just make Denmark as a leader in AI landscape by promoting.
Now I've lost your audio, unfortunately. I hope I'm not the only one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
No?
But it was about the national AI strategies in the Nordics?
Was that if you can tap into such resources or the support that's provided by the government in Nordics region specifically?
So actually, Denmark's not the only Nordic country with an AI strategy. Finland has one as well. Maybe you've heard about their goal to educate 1% of the whole population in AI with Elements AI. Iceland, of course, the first country that took an ethical manifesto at their Institute for Intelligent Machines. So I do think in this sense, the Nordics have been trying to lead a little bit in AI strategy to support companies in development. And Michael, I'd love you to fill in here as well from a startup perspective. But of course, the strategy isn't just about supporting startups, but also supporting the research side and the spin out side, and trying to look at where the AI talent is coming from, and is it just going to be published papers that then nothing happens with the research, or is it possible to then bring it into industrial applications?
Thanks very much for that, Lisa. I think it was very insightful. Aytül, I would like to hear the story from the other end as well. As an award-winning co-founder of a startup, could you please tell us now, how did your story begin, and what were the opportunities and the challenges that day when you look at, like how you started everything?
Well, actually, I was very academic oriented. I studied electrical engineering plus math and did my PhD in applied math at Brown University. Then I worked at GM Research Labs, which sort of changed my view, because I saw the importance of applying research results to solve business problems. So then I came back to Turkey and started teaching in the university, but I was always trying to solve industry problems, and it wasn't going too well. University-industry relationship is talked about for many years, but it was really never achieved in Turkey. So I ended up finding a company at the end of the 90s, but it was too early. There wasn't really a trust that a high-tech product can be developed from Turkey. So we were having lots of problems there. In 2006, I joined Sabancı University, which is a more entrepreneurial university, and they wanted to be a partner. So we closed the first company and opened Vistech, a new company. And then we started growing fast. And in 2009, a German company, Revision, which is #1 in Europe, #3 globally in machine vision, wanted to become a partner. We became partners, and 4 years later, in 2013, I exited. I sold the company to Revision. And then the story of Vispera started. So together with the R&D manager of my previous company, we started Vispera. But this time we were more experienced. We had some money from the sale of the previous company. We had experience, and we had a good team. So Vispera was growing much faster. So what we do is basically image processing, AI, for retail industry. And when we started Vispera, we had 3 ideas. And I'm an Endeavor entrepreneur. Endeavor has this EMBA program with universities like MIT, Stanford, Harvard. So we brought EMBA student to study on our ideas. So 3 groups came for our 3 ideas. They did market research, business plan, and then we chose the current one that we're working on for the retail industry. So we were, much better prepared this time. And Vispera has grown to be quite successful. We're currently working in 18 countries, exporting AI technology to 18 countries.
That's great. As far as I know, you also tap into AI Collaborator's resources and support, right?
Well, very recently, I'm on the board of Kagider, which is Women Entrepreneurs Association. And in Kagider, we formed a technology group to both inform our members about new developments in technology, and also encourage young women to enter technological fields. So for that purpose, we started talking to AI Collaborator and see what we can do together. So we will be starting some courses, entry-level courses, and hopefully follow-on courses together.
That's so exciting. Thanks very much. And Michael, what about Brevetti AI story? How did everything start for you? As it sounds from Aytül's story, they base everything on their learnings from the previous trials. And how did everything evolve for you then in that sense?
Yes, so we did have some learnings also. So as you mentioned, I have a background in machine learning, and early on saw a lot of opportunities of using AI for different applications. So we had a previous startup with the focus of doing quality inspection in the food industry. And although you could do a lot with this technology, we did find some challenges in maturing the product enough while securing funding for what we were doing. So a bit by accident, actually, we suddenly got our eyes on the pharmaceutical industry, where you also have a need for quality inspection. So there, a lot of big pharmaceutical companies produce products in high numbers, and therefore there is a automated process for actually inspecting these products before they are shipped to the market, based on automation cameras. And this is a very good match, we think, for using deep learning, because you can really improve the detection rate of flaws for the safety of the patients, and at the same time you don't make false detections, so that customers will eventually have to throw out products that are falsely detected as having defects. So initially we had disregarded this industry due to regulations, etc. But I think as a place to mature the technology, actually all this regulation also gave us an opportunity to invest in something and know that it's protected. And I think this has been quite important to actually consider the market you're building your product for, because basically it's the same we're building. I think we're just building it for an industry that's more ready to accept the product that we're building. When we started out, of course, we had more ideas of models, and we had shown on different applications that we could deliver, but a challenge was that you actually need to meet the customer where they are at in terms of what are their products like. So definitely, it's always going to be a challenge, I think, to nail the first case and get the data and show that your models actually are working for a real application, because first you need data, and then you need to show that it's working. So to actually get the data can sometimes be a challenge, I think.
Is this how your roads crossed with Lisa and the Nordic AI then?
So Nordic AI, I think when we were starting out, I mean, we were, I guess, the typical description of 3 PhDs in an office.
I guess
so. And of course you can start to do some work, but also you need each to actually find these right applications. And also once you start hiring, we needed to get hold of people that we could actually work with. And 4 years ago, 3 years ago, this was a very new area where you would, you would not have just regular job postings. So, and also in terms of companies, I mean, it's for most traditional companies. So it's very to have a community where you could actually discuss some of the issues and challenges you have with other like-minded companies. That's our initial point with Nordic AI, and that was very helpful at the time. Now it's I think with AI Festival, for instance, and now to have conferences is a very good way to get in reach with a larger number of collaborators or a larger number of customers. So now that's kind of part of our strategy, actually, to meet new, to look for new.
Thanks for that, Michael. When you said the company side do also matter, it's of course the service, the product that you can provide, but also the demand. So what I would like to ask you, James and Lisa, what do you consider when you match the supply that's provided by startups with the demand of the big companies? how do you see that a startup will be the right resource and the perfect match for that big entity to, you know, capitalize on this investment and offer better services to their customers? James, or ladies first, Lisa, maybe?
Sure. I think in terms of when you're considering matching large enterprises with startups, especially here in the Nordics, where sometimes there's a little bit of wariness about working with large corporates, it's really important actually to consider what the organization is hoping to get out of a program, and if are they just farming out their corporate innovation program to startups, or are they actually planning to allow them to grow afterwards? And also thinking about what resources and support they're actually sharing. Because many companies, they want to work with startups, but they're not really sure how, and it won't be fruitful to anybody if the collaboration is based on misunderstandings of what each can do for each other. So it's actually a long conversation to work out those key business problems. And in some cases, you might have more luck with doing a kind of one-off style event or a hackathon or a challenge, which can match a specific supply and demand, where you can meet some companies working on your key business problems and maybe engage with them on a case-by-case basis. But James, I understand you have a very different business model, so I'm also interested to hear your input on this idea.
For sure. So yeah, we take a bit of a different approach, and one of the things that we do is we actually spend time with the company going through what we call an articulation process, because most of our companies are, and meaning the enterprises, they're actually in sort of the early phases of their journey with AI, and so given that we would take on any project, we bring in sort of innovation managers who can actually help them really formulate what the objectives, what the KPIs, what are they looking for, how do they really define success? And that's often the biggest challenge, is getting them to, okay, we need you to quantify what does success look like for you. And then from there, when we do it really well, it becomes easier to bring 1 or 2 or 3 companies, if possible, that can match what they're trying to do. And then we start the process of coaching those companies to help those companies all present and show how they're the best fit. And they're all working independent. Our goal is at the time is to, we're supporting all of them. And our goal is just to focus on finding a right match for the companies. But like I said, we also try to focus in on culture and other things that might matter to the customer that are not sort of necessarily the technical things that they might not think of. And then we, more often than not, we can find them a great fit for them when we go into those types of things. And some of the things that we're seeing, I mean, there's definitely, and we're all seeing this, I think, but definitely here in the US, a lot of, for example, diversity and inclusion and things like that are becoming more important. So, so a company can ask, okay, great, they have the technology, but tell us about their management structure. Do they have women in the organization? Do they have people of color in the organization? And start to match some of those types of things up as well.
Thanks so much for that, James. And you are also an angel investor. Would you like to share anything upon that topic as well? Because I believe you should also have some experience in matching demand versus supply.
Yeah, well, I only invest in technical problems, solvers, and mostly it's a team. It's really, I mean, like one of my investments was in 3D printing, which is something that I wouldn't usually invest in because there are a lot of players in that domain. But the team was so good that I decided to, and now they're doing really well. They're one of the best investments right now. So it's really the team that makes it or breaks it. Like there was another investment in Israel. The team was excellent technically, but they were not very good in business, and they went bankrupt in very short time. within a year of our investment, they spent all the money and went bankrupt. So it's really, there are many factors, of course, but the team is really number one that I'm looking into. They should be able to carry out they should be able to develop the good product and then be able to sell it. So both the technical part and also the commercial part is crucial.
James, if you were to list top 5 qualifications for a good team, as Aytül touched upon, what would be those qualifications? So yes, 3 PhD students, they look brilliant and smart, but still this aspect is missing. If you were to come up with a list.
And I think that was for me. And what I would say is there's flexibility is one that's key. I mean, yes, lots of people have great technology, right? And maybe not great technology specifically for that domain, but a lot of the things that ultimately determine how successful a company is some of the soft skills too, right? It's being able to be flexible, being able to, I'm an entrepreneur too, of course, and I built a couple of different companies, but this is a process of learning how to align your message and with the benefits of your products to get the customer to the table as quick as possible and understanding what you're doing. So, and that's a big part of the struggle is how do you take great technology, layer in the marketing, the positioning management, or the positioning message, and then the sales channels and all this other stuff that you have to layer in to really make it a successful company. So it's being able to be flexible, being able to be to listen and work with others outside of your domain, and trust that those others can bring lots of great capabilities to the table to help you solve. Also, especially when you're going global, is being able to listen to folks that are in the market, being able to establish relationships with them, and really help and leverage that to your benefit. It's and so some of it goes past your technical capabilities. It starts to be your sales capabilities. How can you leverage everyone you touch in order to make them a partner and make them want to work with you by how you engage with others, right? And so if I break that down, I guess, so flexibility, willing to listen, and then also be approachable and willing to engage, I guess is the final one. So those are so going beyond the technology, if we say, hey, everyone has an amazing technology set and great teams, then, okay, what's going to determine success is, okay, we all have to get out and we all have to sell in order for anything to happen, right, around the business. So how do we increase the chances of success? I think those things start to help out.
Görkem, can I add something?
Yeah, sure, Aytül, please.
I think there are 3 pillars to a successful company, the technical side, sales side, and finances. So I think either the partners or the employees should be strong in these 3 pillars. It has to, I mean, if you're a technology company, you have to have a strong technological team, of course, but you also have to have a very good sales team. And you have to have a good finance team so that you can get funding or manage cash flow, because a lot of companies fall under because they cannot manage their cash flow. So I think those 3 pillars is important in forming the team.
Oh, thanks for that, Aytül. It's interesting because it sounds like even though we are talking about artificial intelligence as our core product, we still need the human aspect. So to become a good, successful AI startup, you still need a good team, which is based on a good harmony, flexibility, and aligned cultural discipline. and so forth. But I also want to get Lisa's opinion. Yeah, Michael. Who?
Yeah.
James.
James. One point before you go to Lisa, and I was just simply going to say it's one thing that I always say is artificial intelligence is too important to be left to the engineers alone. So you got to bring in the business people as well.
I think, Michael, you should counterattack this statement.
I hope, Michael, you don't feel too personally attacked, but there's definitely the case that with many technical companies, and not just AI companies, but tech-first companies, the belief that the tech will speak for itself if it's good enough. And that's not the right mindset for global expansion. So a very typical setup where you have an all-tech team and the only person working on business development is the CEO, and maybe a hired part-time intern doing other marketing and business development. That setup is not going to help you for global expansion. Although it is beyond common. Maybe that will help you in your home market for some time, but it can't get you very far in new markets.
That's a really very good point. Really. Michael, you have your chance to counterattack.
So I think I definitely appreciate what these guys are saying about what happens if you focus too much on the tech. And I think concept of an AI startup, it's almost posed wrongly to start out with, because AI is not really something you can sell. So what you should aim to be is, or if you have a strong tech team, is to find a product, find something you can sell. And if it requires a high level of AI to make it work well, or to give a good customer experience, and to make the customer save money, well, that's going to give you some head start if you can do well on this. But really what you're selling is not the AI. What you're selling is a product. I mean, in our case, it's really, can we sort the products in good or bad products, find defects? But we are not selling AI. I mean, the customer doesn't care about that. They care about a solution that ensures safe medicine for the consumers. And I think we are very heavy on tech, but I think there are a lot of other applications where I think the tech stack is, of course, something that can support the business, but the business should be something else, really, because otherwise you're not really you don't have customers. I mean, you just have technology. So I think this is something I learned over the last 4 or 5 years when I was building different startups, that really there's a difference between the commercial side and the technical side.
How many are you in Brevetti right now, Michael? How many employees do you have?
So we have 4 people, and we are all very deeply technical. So I think for the same reason, we just joined the Brevetti company. So even though we never really got to the point where I think our product is just standalone, because it's a product for such a complicated industry, it integrates with large machines that are different at each site. We kind of decided, okay, I think the best we can do on the commercial side is actually to join with a company that already has nailed the commercial side down, build a product, and then now we can integrate and add on so that it's more clear how our product actually fits for customers. But I think that's partly a consequence of not having a commercial strategy to start out with. We just built great tech that some people were interested in buying.
No, it's really interesting. And when we are speaking about that topic, I also would like to touch upon the new market opportunities for AI startups. You all are so experienced in that field. And what would you advise startups to keep in mind when they are assessing a new market opportunity? Because as I said at the beginning, right now there are truly innovative solutions that are popping up. And of course, everyone wants to scale up their business and run on a global level. But what are the tips that you could share with them when it comes to assessing the right market for their product? Because Michael, you just said that it could be an add-on product as well, or it could be a new industry. You are in pharmaceutical, Aytül is in retail industry. So some tips that you could share with our audience. Maybe Lisa, if you don't mind going first, let us start with you.
Yeah, I think this is related to your last question in terms of the team makeup, because there is research that shows that, you know, while you may develop at an early stage very quickly with a similar team, when it comes to scaling, you'll benefit hugely from having a diverse team, because it will help you understand at a deeper level a lot of the issues that you're going to run into when you globally scale. Pre-COVID, one way that we helped a lot of companies get into the market was by giving them a kind of more boots on the ground understanding just by attending things like large trade shows in the region to talk to potential customers, simply because a lot of people really underestimate the cultural differences in certain markets. So to give you an example from the Nordics, I think most Nordic companies, they would like to eventually conquer the US. But going to a US trade show and learning that some of your customers still use dial-up internet will be a culture shock for you when you actually see the gap between the countries. In COVID times, what we're telling people to emphasize is there actually a need for you to have activities on the ground to be able to establish new business? Do you need a physical base of operation? Can you do all your activities online? And what are the possibilities? We also see more and more companies that are doing things like establishing in a new market by getting a hot desk and just flying in 1 or 2 times every few months to have customer meetings back to back and trying to bring this process online.
Very good points. Thanks, Lisa. Aytül, would you like to share some points on this subject as well?
Sure. The main questions were, what should be our go-to-market strategy? Which countries should we operate in? Should we open our own office or should we work with partners? Should we move our headquarters there or should we just open sales office? How do we manage customer expectations and customer happiness? How do we find the right partner? How do we manage cash collection and cash flow? So all these issues have to be answered. And to decide which countries we should operate in, we looked at different factors like size of the market, the time zone they're in, because actually we don't have to be there. I mean, we're working in 18 countries right now, but other than India, we don't have any people in any other country. In India, we have only 1 salesperson, and in all of the countries, we manage from Turkey. So we don't have to be there physically, but the time zone is important, because if they want, service in the time zone that they're working in, we have to either have local people there or arrange it accordingly. We have to do assessment of competition in that country. How do we, are there really competitors that are already well established there? What are we going to compete in? Currency stability, corruption index value, capital requirements to open an office. As Linda said, everybody wants to operate in the US, especially for us, for retail. US is the biggest market, but it's very expensive to open an office there, to hire people there. Banking and taxing rules. For example, we realized in India and in Kazakhstan, they deduct some taxes at the end of the project, which may be a year from now. You can claim that from your own government. So that really affects the cash flow. You don't really get paid what you invoice. And in countries, the bureaucracy is too heavy and cash collection is very difficult. So all of these considerations should be taken into account. But the most important is, if you are customer-centric like we are, and we haven't had any churn from our customers, which is based on, providing good services to them, it's very important to keep your customers happy. And if you work with partners, which is what we're doing in most countries, you have to make sure that the partners represent you. They have the same ethical values, they have the same quality perception and the professional attitude. So choosing the right partner is very important. I mean, we have partners in several countries, but we have a qualification criteria. We spend time on qualifying the partners, and making sure that they will do and monitor them also very closely. Another thing is we formed an international advisory board from people who are very experienced in the domain and who are well known, because that's important both in helping us understand what's going on in that domain and also establish credibility. And utilizing networks like the ones we have in our panel today, and other networks. For example, Endeavor is a network that I use a lot. Endeavor is an international organization that helps entrepreneurs, selected entrepreneurs in some countries. Like when I want to go into a country, I talk to Endeavor representatives first and ask them about the environment in that country, and they also make some connections because it's difficult to find the first few customers in any country. So these networks are very useful for establishing relationships and tapping into potential customers.
Thanks very much. It's an extensive list, but I bet it was very beneficial for our audience. Thanks very much, Aytül. James, what would you like to share on this topic?
She pretty much covered it. I mean, that was great.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I would add to that is just be honest with yourself about where you are, where your business is. Are you really ready? Do you have the financial capabilities to support a new market? Do you have the ability do you understand both the cost and the benefit side? So everyone wants to eat the big elephant and hunt the big elephant, but and I'm not advocating for hunting elephants, but it's being honest with yourself and where your business is, and do you have the capabilities really to support it? And then understanding who your true client is, and meaning what size, what focus. I mean, you can say grocery in the U.S., but then that means a lot of different things. There's all different sorts of shapes and sizes. And then the other point I will say is really understand, if you are going to take the leap and decide to come to definitely a market the size of the U.S., you really have to think about where do you want to be to maximize your opportunity. A lot of folks will go to San Francisco here in the States, and because they're focused on the funding side, because that's the dream come true, right? Where everybody typically would move to San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and that's all the opportunity. But if your clients are based in Cincinnati primarily, then you've done all this work you move from your country, you're far away from the clients, almost as far as being in another country from your clients, and you have to work across time zones. And so your chances, so you're spending a ton of money flying back to that client. So you really have to analyze in great detail, if you decide to take this leap, where do you need to be? Where are you going to invest and prioritize to be able to support it?
Thanks for that, James. And Michael, any tips you would like to share with our audience?
I think it's been pretty well
if anything
covered.
Is left, of course.
So as I discussed our outreach through conferences and workshops, and then of course, since we joined the Brevetti family, we have agents that actually promote the product, and of Brevetti products, they're already used to selling that. So I think it's a good way to narrow it down to, okay, so what are you actually trying to sell, so that you can explain it to a sales agent. I think that's a good exercise for a group of engineers to find out what you're actually building.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you all.